Think you know what way it's going to go? Make your bet at Sports Interaction. Whatever your sport, Sports Interaction has you covered pregame, live betting on all major sports, and prop bets. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 and over, please play responsibly.
As for the playoff play-in, what's interesting about this story and what I think makes it buzzy is, first of all, people have different opinions on it, but is that so many NHL teams or general managers, and there were a lot of GMs actually at the Board of Governors meeting. It isn't always the case, but there's probably 7 or 8 GMs just off the top of my head there. Well, a lot of those individuals would like to see the playoffs, quote unquote, expanded or a new round added, however we want to phrase this. Gary Bettman remains steadfastly against it. And I actually get his view, quite honestly. I mean, what do we celebrate the most probably about the Stanley Cup playoffs? It's probably the first round, quite honestly. It's not to say there aren't other great rounds, but there's a certain sugar rush to those first like week to 10 days of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The games are exciting and unpredictable. And I think his thought is like, why even mess with the success if that's already working? The counterpoint, of course, is why not capture what we've seen every other major sport do? The NBA, Major League Baseball, they've all added new wrinkles to their playoffs in recent years. And you could get more games, more excitement leading into that first round. I actually don't have a strong opinion on this one. I can see both sides to a degree. What say you, young Mr. McKenzie?
I think it's wild that people are so against this idea. I think the fact that people are saying, oh, well, we have an 82 game season that leads into the playoffs. I'm sorry. I don't think of, and maybe this is just the way I see it, but in other sports, when we see a play-in, I don't see that same view come up a lot when two really good teams could be playing against each other for a playoff spot. Like, I thought about it and talk like Salim Valji and I will talk all the time about the Flames this year and how it's looking more like the Flames and the Oilers might end up battling for a playoff spot more than them playing against each other in a playoff series. Could you imagine if they were in a play-in game or a play-in round? Like, that should be fun. Like, that should be like really, really cool. And I guess like maybe you might have to configure who might actually be in the first round. Do you give your top seed a bye? Maybe you don't even have to do that. Maybe every other team can still go into the first round as normal. It's just that you change maybe one of the lower seeds and that has to eventually go up against a top seed. It's just the same thing. Not to mention, again, like if you make it
so wait a minute,
1 game or 3 games, like you could get revenue from that.
This is the we have a counterpoint though, right? Because I think it's
absolutely.
It's pretty much accepted that it would be the 7th seed versus the 10th seed, the 8th seed versus the 9th seed, basically
like the NBA does.
To comprise the 2 lowest seeds that get in the playoffs. But like last year, I believe there was a 20-point gap between the 8th seed and the 9th seed. Like, how would you feel about a 9th seed team finishing 20 points behind the 8th seed and then knocking them out in a 2 out of 3?
The same way I would feel about an 8th seed losing to beating a 1 seed. You should have gotten the job done. We should have gotten the job done.
Right. Because that is, to me, that is a not insignificant counterpoint. But the other thing too, though, is like, let's remember last season and the playoffs were great last year, but the end Absolutely. Of the regular season ended on like the lamest lame that could ever lame. Like we had like all these games at the end of the year that literally meant nothing. There wasn't even jockeying really for position. Like teams were just locked in. The East in particular, like we knew who the playoff teams were going to be for like 2 months before the end of the season. I think that this would at least create more drama down the stretch, and keep more teams in the race. And, do you know what's actually held it up, at least according to one of my trusted sources, is that the TV partners haven't stepped up in a meaningful way and like come to the league and said like this will generate X amount of dollars. This is why it will work. This is what it would look like. This, I think it's something that like the teams want, some members of the media and fans want, but like the dollars and cents aspect of it hasn't been brought to the league in a proper formal way. And I think that's ultimately why it hasn't happened is, Gary Bettman likes the current playoffs, hasn't seen a compelling financial reason to do it. And so I think he's thinking like, why change something unless, someone says, hey, it could be $200 more million or whatever it would be. I don't know what the number would be, but it only stands to reason it'd be exciting. Like I look, it's well known to loyal listeners of this pod. I'm a big Blue Jays fan. I watch the Blue Jays, but I actually will just watch a wild card baseball game. And I don't watch a random game during the season ever, basically. But something like that gets my attention. And I think the same would hold true if you're a Canadian hockey fan and it's like Minnesota and St. Louis in a play-in game. You probably still flick it on because the stakes would be so high and it'd be interesting and different. You do have to change. I'd still like to see them abolish the divisional playoff format. This is the CJ Island show because I might be on an island there. But I still hate, I just don't like this format. And I understand why they do it, but I think I'd rather see it be a little bit more fair after 82 games and have some, I don't know why the conference format needed to be changed. Essentially, I thought that was much more fair. But again, I'm getting off topic.
So moving away from the conference format, something was clearly broken there, but hell no, we can't touch anything to do with the playoffs. You're talking about something that should be fixed. I don't get it. It just, and thank you for mentioning the fact that maybe it has not been presented to Gary Bettman in a way that properly explains the financial compensation side of it. Because for me, I know for me, if we get a wild card, imagine if it was just one game off, and maybe some people can debate, maybe it should be a 3-game series, 5-game, whatever. But imagine if
I think 3 is the sweet spot.
I think 3 is a sweet spot. But imagine a weekend where we could say, all right, 1 game to decide if you're getting into the playoffs or not. You get doubleheaders, East, West conference games, whatever, throughout a weekend. I don't know about you. You ain't going to find me anywhere else. I want to watch those games. I'm just like you. I will watch the Milwaukee Brewers play against, the Giants in a wild card game. And I'm like, all right, this is fun. Those wild card games we saw this year were really fun in the Major League Baseball playoffs. So I'm really stunned at the fact that, at least in my mentions, so many people were against the idea. It's have we not seen what the excitement level can be in these games?
You could steal the baseball format, and that's one way. This is a good counterpoint to what happens if seed 9 or 10 is way behind. Well, if they have to play all those games on the road, I'm just talking about logistics now.
Absolutely.
Let's say seed 7 and 8 get 3 home games in a potential best of 3. So that other team has to go and win 2 games in your building. I mean, that does at least account for the fact that one team had a better 82 regular season. Because, it's hard to go on the road and win 2 games unless you're the Seattle Mariners coming into Rogers Center and kicking the Blue Jays ass. But sorry, I'm not still bitter.
I understand that for sure.
But, I think that's one way to do it. And then you can maybe have that, say, three games in 4 days. And then, that's also punitive for the team that gets through because you might have to play 3 games in 4 days extra and then go into the first round. But that's probably proper. That makes up for the difference in being first in the conference is you're going to get a tired opponent. I look, there's an argument for it. But where we should be applying the heat then, if you're a fan that wants to see this, you need TNT, ESPN, and Sportsnet, the 3 national rights holders in US and Canada, to be, coming up with a solution maybe, or putting some heat on it. That's where I think change comes from, honestly. If this is ever going to happen, or might push it over the top, if those networks can come up with a dollar figure of what this could generate and how that could positively impact revenue. Because look, out of the pandemic, the league is doing all kinds of stuff that it might not have done on this same time frame, like the jersey ads and the helmet ads and the digital dasher boards, and all this stuff is designed to make more money, to make up for the losses in the pandemic. And so if there was a way to convince those at the top of the NHL it would make the same difference in the playoffs, maybe it happens.